Welcome to the England debrief. We are back after the Euros by popular demand to debrief on every England game because they're all live, of course, on talkSPORT. I'm Adrian Durham, and with me to debrief on the 2-0 win here in Dublin against Ireland for Lee Carsley's men, it's our England commentator Jim Proudfoot and our England legend Stuart Pearce. So Lee Carsley's first game in charge. Stuart, we've won it. Nations League is competitive. What's your takeaways?
I think the important thing is the victory. The clean sheets haven't been forthcoming recently, so that's been a real bonus to us. First half, some really good phases of play, I thought. Some good movement, high tempo, two really good finishes. Disappointments, second half, we just took that foot off the gas a little bit, let a team come back into the game that probably needed to be beaten 3 or 4-0 in my opinion.
Comparisons, obviously, Jim, are going to be drawn with the Gareth Southgate reign. Did you see improvements? Was it more of the same? What did you reckon?
The second half I felt was more of the same. That felt like, again, that we've seen quite a few times, and it was a little bit frustrating that the tempo dropped off and it became almost a feeling that for the first 35 minutes of the second half it was possession for possession's sake. So that felt the same. First half, albeit that you're looking through the prism of first half performance against a side who really weren't very good. When they're ranked outside the top 50 in the world, and you could see why. I thought that Ireland were disappointing, even by their standards, were disappointing. So you've got to couch everything in those terms. But I did think that Jack Grealish playing at 10 worked. Declan Rice was a little bit further forward. That was good. Anthony Gordon was getting plenty of possession. Trent coming from right back into central midfield to spray those passes. That worked really well. So the first 45 minutes, I thought there were loads of really positive aspects. Second half, it felt as though the job was done, and England played as though it felt as though the job was done, really.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to read too much into it, Stuart, because Ireland was so bad first half, but then England dropped off. You said in commentary on the radio that, yeah, it should have been, 4-5-0, maybe even more if England had carried on. Why didn't they carry on? From a coaching point of view, a tactical point of view, could you see why England stopped doing the good things they were doing in the first half?
I think the break always, if you're doing really well up to the break at half time, normally there's a downturn. Or if you're not doing particularly well, there's an upturn. The managers get the opportunity to get the players in the dressing room, tinker with a few things, few pointers from what they've seen. Ireland improved in the second half, no doubt about that. I think the Seamus Coleman injury and the 2 substitutions played a part in that. And we sort of, I don't know whether the players saw it as job done at half time, haven't we done well? But listen, up to half time there was some really good pluses within our ranks, and Jim's touched on a few of those. I think I'd add to that as well, Mark Guehi as well, in both halves. He's got a bit of Des Walker from my period of playing. He reads the game extremely well, he dips in front of people, and he's got that little bit of pace that gets you out of trouble at times, so that's always good. Ireland missed 2 really gilt-edged chances in the second half, and if they had been more clinical, like we were, and that's probably the real difference between the golfing sides today, the clinical finishes for England were really good, I thought, the goals.
If you're watching this and you know Mark Guehi, just make sure he watches it as well, because Stuart Pearce has just compared him to Des Walker. That's some comparison. He'll be feeling 10 feet tall, Mark Guehi, with that comparison. That's high praise indeed. Well,
it just, the little things that he does, how he reads the game slightly, Des was a little bit less not going to Des, but listen, he was a magnificent player. But I think Mark's come in, he's played circa 20 games now for his country, and he's ticked those games up very quickly. I wouldn't have thought he's played that many, but he has, and he's won. He's almost the first central defender on the team sheet, I would say now.
And he could play right and left centre half.
Exactly that. He's adept at playing in both positions. He's done himself no harm this summer, and certainly had a good start to this campaign.
Jim, in the interviews we had live on talkSPORT after the game, we heard from Jack Grealish, Declan Rice, Anthony Gordon and Lee Carsley himself during our show at the Aviva. And they were very positive. Even about the second half, they were all very positive. So we the three of us, I think, all felt a bit of a downer on the second half England performance. Are we being too negative about that, bearing in mind what they said?
You could argue that, well, they would say that, wouldn't they? They're not going to come out and say, oh, that was disappointing. And there has to be a feeling of positivity, really. You know, you've got a man that's got a fantastic chance to stake his claim for the job that he wants. 6 games in order to make an impression. That, don't get me wrong, that was a solid first win and a solid first performance. You know, it's a win to 0 away from home. And to an extent, that's all that matters. Don't forget, it's a competitive game. We didn't win a single game within the last Nations League campaign, albeit we're in League A, now we're in League B, off to a winning start, and that was always going to be the single most important thing. So, you know, maybe we are being harsh, but you've got to be realistic. It's a 2-0 win. You know, we're 2-0 up inside half an hour, and then it ends 2-0 against a side who are ranked nearly 60 in the world, who are also in transition. So I think that you've just, you know, we'll do what we always do and just try and, you know, see the positives and be honest and give an honest assessment with no agenda as to the performance. I think Lee Carsley will look at that, and when he's watched it back will feel that there is room for improvement over the next 5 games, and I think that improvement will come probably in every one of those next 5 games. So it's a solid start. So we're not sort of sitting here with a real downer on it. Oh, you know, nothing's changed, isn't it? Isn't it all terrible? England are still rubbish, Carsley out. It's not that. It's a million miles from that. I make no bones about it. I want him to get the job. So I really hope that the improvement is there. And the promising thing tonight was that there were so many positive aspects within the first 45. I like the balance of the midfield. That's something that we've been critical of in the past. And I thought that was there today. With Mainu playing as the deepest, and that giving them a little bit more licence to push forward. But particularly with Jack Grealish having a free role, that meant that there was then space as he drifted out to the left a lot, space for Deck to come forward into. And it was, you know, he scored a goal and an assist. I think it's the first time he's ever done that in the same game, which kind of underlines the increased attacking influence that he had. Because one of the criticisms we've had of England is that when Harry Kane doesn't score, you don't get a lot of goals being chipped in from elsewhere. You get the odd one, of course, but you haven't got a prolific midfielder in that England squad. So, you know, the balance of the midfield I thought was a massive positive tonight. So I don't think we're being too down. I think that we're giving the same kind of reflection that behind closed doors that the England coaching staff will as well. Yeah, it's solid, job done, move on to the next game, see if we can be a little bit better in the second half and keep our foot on the throat of beleaguered opposition a little bit more than we have.
I think as well, when we are critiquing the performance, we've got to understand as well that Lee Carsley, this is the biggest game that he's ever managed in his career, you know, aside from maybe the under-21 final last summer, but this is a different pressure. And he's also got a coaching staff that are quite lightly raced as well, with experience-wise, you know, in Jolyon and Coley. So I think all those things have to come in the mix as well, that it is a learning curve for the coaching staff.
Wednesday night on talkSPORT, you and I spoke about how we feel Declan Rice can give more. Jim's just outlined it there. He was terrific today. Of course, the Irish lads scored for England, Rice and Grealish. But Declan Rice, I thought, was excellent today. And maybe you could criticise him. I thought he was classy in his, you know, low-key celebration.
Yeah, as I say, there's been a clamour, and I've worked directly with him, and I know there's more to come, and I know he can offer more, and I think he can do that, getting on the front foot. And I think he done that, especially in the first half. I mean, his finish was absolutely clinical, and he's played a part in the other goal as well. So we take that all day. That's going to be the mark of him when his career's finished. They'll look back and say, listen, you've done a brilliant job as a holding midfield player, but also as well, you've chipped in with 10, 20 goals, hopefully.
Jack Grealish at 10, as Jim was outlining, was superb. I mean, we're short of 10s, obviously, England. Haven't got many. How many can we play with? 3, 4 in the same team?
Easy.
Yeah. But he's staked a claim for that to be his position, hasn't he?
Well, I think he enjoyed it there. You could see in his body language the way he was roaming over the pitch. Lee Carsley mentioned with his interview with Faye that they give him a bit of licence, not to just play directly behind the centre forward, but to go and overload wide areas and get on the ball. And he seemed to really enjoy his football and get on the ball. You can tell in his body language he did. And he was part of it and got himself a goal. And once again, you look at Jack and you want to return. You want to return on creation, you want to return on goals, and he's delivered one today.
And the other thing you've got to think about with Jack, you know, the last time that he played as a 10 in a 4-2-3-1 formation was a game in June 2021. That's for club or country. So that's more than 3 years that he hasn't been given that exact freedom in that position. So you can understand why he relished it so much. But it's going to be interesting going forward now. Is he seen by Lee Carsley as a 10 and not as a left winger? So is he very much down the pecking order as a left winger? And obviously when you get the likes of Foden and Bellingham back available, what does that mean for Jack?
I think Gareth Southgate might have been criticised for playing him out of position today, but Lee Carsley gets away with it because he played so well as well. Very quickly, Jim, would you see any changes for Finland Tuesday?
Yeah, I think there'll be a few, because I think that what he will want to do when you've got what is on paper the easiest game in the group, you're playing the lowest ranked opposition that we're facing in these 6 games at home, so it's a chance for limited experimentation. There'll be plenty of players that he wants to see in match practice that he hasn't seen so far today. I think you could have a look at who he brought on, who he didn't bring on, and almost have a good guess at what his likely side is going to be. So I think that there will be quite a few changes, yeah.
You agree with that?
Totally. I see no reason why not to. I think the one position he won't change because of where it's at the moment is Harry Kane. 100 caps maybe.
Yeah.
On
Tuesday night will be his 100th.
I can see that being the case, and what a great showpiece for him to get his 100th at Wembley and whatever. But certainly I can see circa 5 or 6 changes.
Well, if Lee Carsley's in the job for, say, 4 years, wins every game 2-0, by the end of it we'll be European champions and world champions. That's how easy it is. First England debrief of the Lee Carsley era is done. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.